get started with this story here about Ilhan Omar. Now, again, Ilhan Omar, I want to remind you, was one of the Justice Democrats. She has, I would say, out of the members of the squad, she's actually been the one that's been a little bit more vocal, a little bit more outspoken. Not so much that way anymore. So we are going to get into that story first. So let me go ahead and add this here. Look at this photograph. No. Listen, I am not a fan of Nickelback. I really do not like the band Nickelback. I don't. And I don't like them because they scream. Like, why are you screaming at me when you're singing your song, right? So he's like, look at this photograph. And I'm like, okay, I'll look at the picture. Stop yelling at me. Stop yelling at me. So I heard that song briefly today in passing, and it's been stuck in my head ever since. And what's really interesting to me is that a lot of people that I have met said they do not like Nickelback, but Nickelback sells out their shows. So that tells me that somewhere, somebody out there actually likes Nickelback. Maybe some people aren't being truthful. Let's get into this story. I hope I didn't get that song stuck in your head. We're going to talk about Ilhan Omar. Shout out to K-Study QB for this clip here. So Ilhan Omar has decided to join some type of an alliance with Steny Hoyer. Now, Steny Hoyer, I want to remind you, he was challenged by Michaela Wilkes this year. I believe he was challenged by her the last election cycle as well. She was the progressive running against him. He is not good on many issues. He's just not good. But I'm sorry. I'm looking at the Nickelback comments. JB says Nickelback was forced upon us. I'm sorry. I can't. It's just, why you gotta yell at me? Look at this photograph. I'll do it. I'll do it. Anywho, she's partnered with Steny Hoyer on an issue that I don't feel she went the right way on this. Let's go ahead and get into it.
Look at Capitol Hill here, where the House is expected to vote today on a policing and public safety bill. House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer reaching a deal on the legislation with Congresswoman Ilhan Omar and other progressives. It includes grants for police training and recruitment and addresses mental health. But in a victory for the far left, there will also be language to tackle police accountability. Two moderate Democrats were dropped from negotiations in order for a deal to be reached.
Let's look at something here for a second, because they said that very quickly. Thank you for pointing this out, Case. Representative Steny Hoyer reaches deal with Ilhan Omar and House progressives to fund the police. And you notice how quickly they said that in that news segment. They just kind of went through it pretty quickly and they said, oh, this is a win for the far left. A victory for the far left, they said. Listen to it again.
Hill here, where the House is expected to vote today on a policing and public safety bill. House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer reaching a deal on the legislation with Congresswoman Ilhan Omar and...
This is Steny Hoyer, and this is Ilhan Omar here. So Steny Hoyer, he's corporate. He's a corporate Democrat. He is not a progressive Democrat, although he did try to pretend like he was for some progressive issues. A lot of them have been doing that lately, if you notice. Case in point, Shontel Brown. Listen.
Other progressives. It includes grants for police training and recruitment and addresses mental health.
Pause it right there. It includes grants for training and recruitment, measures addressing mental health, new language on police accountability. Now, if you're just glancing at this, you're like, oh, okay, that's good. They're trying to implement some type of police reform. Nah, boo. This is giving the police more money. Grants, that's money. That's money. For training and recruitment, measures addressing mental health. I don't know what else more you need to address. Police officers should not be brought to the scene of mental health issues. That's pretty widespread. That's known. You need to have mental health professionals handle those situations. New language on police accountability. New language? How about end qualified immunity? What do you mean, like, new language? Very strange, very strange. But this is a way that they can word this so that you think in your mind, yay, the House is trying to pass a bill for some type of police reform. Similar situation with the George Floyd Policing Act, and I told you about that as well. On paper, in theory, it sounds good, but they leave out the fact that they're actually giving the police more money. They are funding the police. Now, this is Ilhan Omar. She's supposed to be the progressive. She's from Minneapolis, correct? Isn't that where George Floyd was murdered? Isn't that where you had the bulk of the protests against the police right there in Minneapolis? Protesting against police brutality? Give them more money? What are they doing with the money that they have? How often are they solving any crimes? 0.02%. 0.02%. So what are they doing with most of their time? How often do they prevent crime? Did the police officers in Uvalde, Texas, they prevent the school shooter from shooting up the school? And they were there on the scene and chose not to intervene. They were there for an hour. Why are you giving them more money? Do you see the problem? And I bet you, that's right, Rick, buy more tykes. And I bet you the progressives in the House are going to make this seem like we passed this sweeping police reform bill. And they're not going to tell you that they're giving the police more money. Because they know damn well, with a lot of us younger people, that message does not go over well. They know that. Yasmin says, yes, Sabby, the city council quietly gave the police here and MSP more funding. I believe Yasmin is in Minneapolis. You see what I'm saying? They leave that part out. And here comes Fox News to say, oh, a win for the left.
But in a victory for the far left, there will also be language to tackle police accountability. Two moderate Democrats were dropped from negotiations in order for a deal to be reached.
How is new language on police accountability a win for the far left? The language doesn't mean anything to me. What matters to me is how you're actually going to hold them accountable. Are you going to take away qualified immunity? That matters. Are you giving the police more money? That matters. Why aren't you putting that money, those grants for training and recruitment, why aren't you putting those grants in the communities that the police have been terrorizing right there in Minneapolis, Ilhan Omar? Why aren't you putting grants into the community? This is the problem. Did you see this here? And Case was so smart. He caught this. He caught it. Who is Ilhan Omar politically? Who is she? Who is Cindy Hoyer? Let's look at Ilhan first, because I want to show you, we talk about this, like how people vote, right? We did this comparison with AOC. We're going to do this comparison with Ilhan Omar. When it comes to legislation, how does Ilhan Omar's voting record compare to someone who was a corporate Democrat like Nancy Pelosi? Let's see what we have. Head-to-head compare voting records. Here's Ilhan Omar, and here's Nancy Pelosi. Overall, when you compare their voting records, Ilhan Omar agrees with Nancy Pelosi 88% of the time. 88%. And you know what that means? That means that this whole theory of going into the Democratic Party and this whole idea of a hostile takeover, there's no hostility. There's no takeover. What you do have are those progressives going into the Democratic Party and being consumed, being devoured by the corporate Democrats who are there. You're either going to move over to their way or you're going to be gone. It's going to be the corporate Democrats' way or it's going to be the highway. This should be flipped. What you should see here, if she's the progressive, she's the Justice Democrat, it should say that she agrees with Nancy Pelosi 12% of the time. This should say agree. And this 88% should be disagree. Then I will say there's a hostile takeover. But what you have is them going along to get along. That's what you have. They'll disagree a little bit. So that's that 12%. So they can appear like they're actually doing something when they're really not. But the majority of the time, she is siding along with Nancy Pelosi. You see the problem? By the way, if you want to use this site, you can change the politician. In fact, let's see if we can find an example. Yeah, I think it's just the site. It's like slowly moving. Oh, there it is. Okay. Ayanna Pressley, we'll check this one too. In reference with her and Nancy Pelosi. Let's see. What do you know? 88% of the time. You see the problem? Very interesting, huh? Very interesting. They're not really there to actually push forth any type of progress per se. They're there to just put like a little bit of a dent. But the majority of the time, they're going along with the corporate Democrats. Don't get mad at me. I'm just showing you the numbers. Now, in reference to Steny Hoyer, I would say, he's another one, a corporate Democrat that realized it would be good for him to go along with some of these progressive policies when he was running for re-election, but not actually implement them. Michaela Wilkes ran against him for 2022 this year and the previous cycle as well. She was the progressive candidate. But there's something here that I want to point out that I think people really need to see. And I'm going to highlight this right here, actually. This is what you need to hear about Steny Hoyer. Hoyer has long been a frustrating figure for those on the left. His positions on foreign policy and his perceived closeness to corporations and the rich have made him a target for progressives, notably in May 2020. Hoyer fought for fossil fuel bailouts during the pandemic relief funds, likening the payouts to the conglomerates to assisting essential workers. That was egregious. Now, that's according to the Oil Change International campaigner, Colin Reese. What you have to understand is you have people like him. They're corporate Democrats, but they realize, you know what? Some of these progressive policies are actually pretty popular with the people. So maybe I should say that I support these things as well. And I'll win and people will believe it and I'll still win. And that's something that he did. He has done. So this is who this person right here, who basically he fought for fossil fuel bailouts. This is the person that Ilhan Omar is working with. to give the police more money. She's not working with him to do anything progressive. She's not trying to push Steny Hoyer to the left. Do you see the problem? It's a problem. This is a problem. What do you do about it? Desert Mantis said it's called selling out. There you go. And you can look up any of the politicians, their voting record. You can look this up. This is public information. Leroy said the new rotating villain is Steny, and he's taken the heat off of Ilhan. Give both of them all of the smoke. See it? Scott said it's really careerist behavior. It really is. This is where we're at now. This is where we're at. Yeah. So when people say to me, what if it was a Marianne Williamson, or what if it was Elizabeth Warren, or what if it was this person? It doesn't matter who the person is anymore, because once they go into the Democratic Party, you see what's happening. They're folding, they cave, they go along with the corporate Democrats. It doesn't matter if you can change the person, you can change the face, but they're still doing the same thing. That's the problem.